Brother lads, welcome back to Kossi's Arsenal podcast. My name is Kossi. Welcome back to brand new video. Let's dive into the comments made by former Arsenal goalkeeper Bernard Leno that there is a lot of politics in this Arsenal side, and that is the reason as to why he was dropped out of the first 11 and eventually out of the Arsenal squad. Not because of poor performances, not because of poor results, but there is a lot of politics in Arsenal, and that is why, and that is eventually what cost him his place in the starting 11. I want your thoughts. I want your opinions on this one. Do you think Bernard Leno was actually kicked out of the Arsenal first, starting 11 because of politics, or we were fed up? We were really frustrated about his, repetitive mistakes and also poor ball distribution on the pitch. What do you think? Do you support Mikel Arteta's stance of dropping Bernard Leno, or you feel it is, is still part of Mikel Arteta's arrogance and Bernard Leno should have been Arsenal's number one goalkeeper by now? Hit the like button for me. Subscribe to the podcast as well. Let's get into it. Now, he was talking to the Sports Bild, one of the renowned publications in Germany, and he said, when I realized that it wasn't about performance or quality, I knew I had to go. Leno told Bild Sport. In preparation, I saw that it was not about performance, but only about politics. It was clear to me I had to get out of there. And then he says, I'm really relieved that everything is done now. I'm just happy to be here at Fulham. It took a little bit of time, but in the end, we made it, and that is what is the most important thing. Bernard Leno speaking about the politics inside Mikel Arteta's dressing room, and also, inside the Arsenal club as well. Now, more of his comments, more of his excerpts, and one that I really, really loved is one where he talks about him being allowed to train with the team, him being allowed to come into contact with the rest of the other players in the dressing room. But Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who was the former captain, was actually not allowed. So very strong comments from a goalkeeper that we know is very, very professional as a footballer. Very strong comments from an ex-Arsenal player. Now, he spent 4 years at Arsenal, managed by Unai Emery and Mikel Arteta. I don't think there's so many strong, words I will use against Bernard Leno. I don't think he's a disgrace and he's embarrassing and all that. Actually, I'm going to say Mikel Arteta's response to Bernard Leno was absolutely spot on. Because when Mikel was asked about Leno's comments, he said, I'm really surprised that Leno has come out to say such a thing, because is it politics when he was playing every game, or is it just politics when he was dropped out of the starting 11 and the better goalkeeper started in front of him in the pecking order? Now, let's go back to when Leno started dropping off the cliff. In his first 2 seasons under Unai Emery and under Mikel Arteta, I thought he was a superb goalkeeper. I thought he really, really did very well. And that is the reason there was a dilemma whether he should be sold or Emi Martinez. Emi Martinez had risen up as a super goalkeeper for Arsenal, and he was, he had served Arsenal more and longer than Bernard Leno. So he came out and said, look, I'm a super goalkeeper. I'm a good goalkeeper. If you want me to stay around, you need to guarantee me that I'm going to be your number one. Mikel Arteta said, hell no, you're not going to be number one. Bernard Leno is our number one. You've only come out of second position because he's injured. The moment Bernard Leno picks up his form, the moment Bernard Leno comes back to form, he's actually going to regain his position as a starter. And that was what happened. And Emi Martinez was not happy with what happened and decided to join Aston Villa. To be honest, I think Bernard Leno and Emi Martinez are both quality goalkeepers. And I think, either of them starting for Arsenal, I wouldn't mind. I really wouldn't mind either of Leno or Emi Martinez starting for Arsenal. I think they're very good goalkeepers with good reflexes. I think their ball distribution has a problem though, but in terms of becoming being a traditional goalkeeper, in terms of being that, goalkeeper with very, very good reflexes, is gonna make some supersonic saves here and there. I feel they're very, very good. But the reason as to why Bernard Leno was actually dropped out of the Arsenal 11, it was not because he was conceding many goals. And I think that is what he focuses on as a player, because as a goalkeeper, your priority and your primary role is to make sure that the club doesn't concede as many goals as as there is. But the reason as to why Ramsdale was signed by Arsenal, the reason as to why Leno was dropped by Mikel Arteta, it is ball distribution. We all know Leno is one of the worst goalkeepers when it comes to playing with the ball at his feet. His distribution is awful. His distribution is absolutely horrendous. And we've seen, what Mikel Arteta wants to do as a manager. We've seen what Mikel Arteta wants to do, as a coach. He wants to make sure that Arsenal can build up play right from the defense through the midfield into the final third of the opponent. The goalkeeper now and nowadays, it's not about Mikel Arteta alone. It's about Eddie Howe. It's about Graham Potter. It's about Pep Guardiola. It's about Jurgen Klopp. All these managers, all these modern managers now want to have a goalkeeper who is good with the ball at their feet. I mean, you can't be in goal if you are as poor as Victor Valdez. No one cares. You can't be in goal whether you're as poor as Victor Valdez or you're as good as Eduardo Mendy. No one cares. The reason and the first question is, can you play well with the ball at your feet? Can you do proper ball distribution? Can you be relied on that under circumstances where we are under pressure? We will involve our goalkeeper. We will get our goalkeeper involved. Leno is not that kind of goalkeeper. What he doesn't see here is he was spit out by the system and not Mikel Arteta. I am a Leno diehard, and this is the first summer where I've said Leno needs to compete with Manuel Neuer for the World Cup spot, and probably he needs to compete with all the other German goalkeepers when Manuel Neuer decides to say, I'm no longer going to be representing Germany. And I said, if he wants to do that, then he needs to go to a club that makes him a very important player, makes him a first-choice goalkeeper. And for me, Fulham does that very well. But to say it's politics, to come and criticize Mikel Arteta and Arsenal that it was politics, that Leno dropped out of the starting 11, it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. The only kind of politics I will agree to here is Mesut Ozil. He's the only kind of player that I would say, he dropped out of the starting 11 because of politics. And even with Mesut Ozil, we know that the hard work, the work ethic that Mikel Arteta demands in this Arsenal side, the standards, the non-negotiables, Mikel Arteta talks about every day in his press conferences, in his training, in the All or Nothing documentaries. Mesut Ozil is not the kind of player to come and stand up and hold those non-negotiables. He's a lazy player. If you're not in possession, Mesut Ozil does not help you, honestly. And Mikel Arteta doesn't want that. You see the likes of Martin Odegaard working their ass off. You see the likes of Fabio Vieira working their ass off. Yes, you are number 10, but no one cares. You need to win the ball back. If you don't want to win the ball back, do two things. One, get out of the starting lineup, or then make sure that we don't drop the ball. And there is no club in the world that has 100% passing accuracy and 100% ball possession throughout the 90 minutes. That is the only reason, and that is the reason as to why Mesut Ozil dropped out of the starting 11. There was a lot of politics, but also the non-negotiables. Mikel Arteta keeps on talking about the team spirit, the fight, the heart that these Arsenal players are having together, the togetherness, and the unity. He never had that. And for me, there is nothing about Leno and politics. Leno had dropped off a cliff, honestly. And that is why when he decided that he's going to walk away, he's going to be moving to, another club. Look, there are not so many other clubs that really showed a lot of interest. There was not a bidding war. But Leno leaving Arsenal at 30 years of age, there should be a bidding war. Clubs like Borussia Dortmund should be looking at him. Clubs like Bayern Munich themselves, we know Bayern are so good at sporting German talent that is, being wasted abroad, outside Germany, and then bringing them back home. And the fact that Germany clubs literally didn't give a fuck, and it was Fulham at the end of the day. Probably even Leicester City would have considered him if they were serious. But there were not so many clubs interested in Leno. Doesn't that ring a bell to this guy? Probably I'm not as good. I'm no longer as good as I was. I was the first advocate for us to sign Leno when he was at Bayer Leverkusen because he was so good, right? but the system changes. Unai Emery doesn't really care about playing out from the back as long as you're a very, very good goalkeeper. He doesn't care about that, right? As long as you have very nice reflexes, as long as you can, have heavy punches and tight punches, you're good to go. Mikel Arteta's system is a little bit bigger than that. Mikel Arteta's system demands more than that. It demands that a player, especially a goalkeeper, has more attributes to his game apart from diving the right way for penalties and also having strong hands. It demands that you play with your feet, and it demands that you're the first defender and you're also the first attacker. Leno cannot do that. So in my opinion, I'm so disappointed with Bernard Leno. Right? I'm very, very disappointed with Bernard Leno for him to come out and say it was politics that kicked him out of the starting 11. It was not politics. Bernard Leno and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang do not have the right to come and speak to us about good performances or bad performances as reasons as to why they should have stayed in our starting 11. They lost the right, especially Leno and Aubameyang. They lost that right. Aubameyang missing sitters on the line. Aubameyang literally doing nothing, ball watching throughout the 90 minutes when Arsenal, when other players are working tooth and nail. He has no right. Bernard Leno conceding goals that I thought, okay, a goalkeeper of his standard, a goalkeeper of his nature, a goalkeeper of his caliber cannot be conceding those goals. And the fact that he was conceding such stupid goals, silly goals, is the reason that's why this summer I was not even bothered when he left. All I said was, okay, we are losing a quality goalkeeper and we are replacing him with Matt Turner, a guy we know nothing about. That is all I said. For me, Ramsdale is by far now a better goalkeeper than Bernard Leno. And we're going to see this throughout the course of this campaign. Not because, look, he's playing with Fulham, and I think Arsenal is going to have more dominance. He's going to dominate more games. He's going to have more periods where we dominate the games, and that gives safety to Aaron Ramsdale. But in other aspects, ball distribution, in other aspects of confidence, in other aspects of just raising the standards of your defense, talking to your defenders, communication, Ramsdale is a much better guy. Ramsdale is a much better goalkeeper. And if Leno feels like it was politics, why didn't he just say, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to prove everyone wrong, I will get back into the starting 11? Why does he have to run off? Oh, I have World Cup, I have to play in the World Cup, so I have to run to Fulham. You're going to a club that could even be relegated. You could be playing in the Championship next season. Don't you realize that is already a drop in the standards? Why aren't you joining? For example, United were looking for a goalkeeper. Why didn't they think about Bernard Leno? Because he's shit with his feet, honestly. You literally cannot have Bernard Leno in goal. I think for me, the era of Bernard Leno, David De Gea, and all those kind of goalkeepers is coming to an end. And they need to agree to this. They need to agree with this. They need to come to terms with it. You cannot blame the manager for. It's the same thing with Eduardo Mendy right now. If Graham Potter drops him in this Chelsea side, it's not because Mendy is shit with his feet. I think Mendy is okay. Mendy's ball distribution is okay. But Mendy panics when he doesn't need to panic. So if he's dropped by Graham Potter, right? And then he says, oh, I was dropped because of politics. You're not dropped because of politics. You're shit. Work on your form, right? You cannot be conceding goals that the likes of Jordan Pickford, the likes of Nick Pope, are saving every now and then, every now and again. And then you come out and say, well, I was dropped because of politics. Look at Nick Pope. Look at Jordan Pickford. They're still playing, right? You've literally dropped off a cliff. So for me, Leno, it's embarrassing that he comes out to make those remarks. It's so embarrassing that he doesn't recognize that he had fallen off a cliff, and it is very weak-minded for him to come out and blame politics. There is politics is everywhere, and I know there is some element of politics in this Arsenal, side. If you look at the nature of, decaptaining, is that the word? Decaptaining, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, it's a disgrace. Was kind of a disgrace, and the nature in which we treated him after that, it was an absolute disgrace. But dropping him out of the first 11, that was a right call. Dropping him out of, banishing him from training with the first team, that is a wrong call, and I don't agree with that. But Leno, shut up. Don't become a disgrace. Own your mistakes. You were not good enough. See you very, very soon. We'll talk about Mikola Modric. He's made his remarks and he said he cannot turn down Arsenal. So if Arsenal make a move, he will be joining Arsenal probably in January, probably next summer. We will analyze those comments very, very soon here on Kossi's Arsenal podcast. Hit the like button on Twitter, Kossi Arsenal, on Instagram, Kossi_19, and on YouTube, Kossi Talks Football, 90 more, and of course, Kossi's Arsenal Pod.